I'm excited to have Jacklyn here, who is one of my past clients. We worked together not too long ago. And I just want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and like what you do and tell us a little bit about, yeah, where you're at currently.
For sure. My name's Jacklyn. I am in the coaching world as well. So I own a business and life coaching company. So we help entrepreneurs and business owners, and we have different frameworks, different programs, different courses.
Perfect. So when it's awesome that I love first off that you're a coach too, so you understand the power of having a coach by your side on your team. So what prompted you to reach out to me and say like, okay, like I know I have the tools and I have the mindset and I've been doing the work, but I need the extra support.
As a coach, the biggest thing I preach as well is that there's doing the tools yourself, yes, but sometimes you do need that outside support of someone to guide you through that. There is only so much that you can do to a version, and I really found it helpful. I knew I wanted that outside support, and I really trusted you. I thought we had a great relationship to start. I know that the tools work, and I trusted you to go through them.
Some of those tools that we've used is like neurolinguistic programming, mental and emotional release, reprogramming our subconscious mind. And so, where were you prior to working with me, in terms of like, okay, I know I'm ready for change. I know I need that extra support. Like, I have to reach out to Karla because this is holding me back. Like, where were you previously?
Well, we had probably chatted, it was a couple months, I think, right before I
Yeah.
had signed up. So I was just recognizing in myself the patterns of like chaos a little bit and just really overworking and truly prioritizing work. I love that. That's something that makes me tick. However, I realized that I was almost pushing the personal side of my life to the side, and that wasn't serving me any longer.
You had come to me first for career, but then you knew that you needed that shift with personal growth. And so what were some of the like fears that you recall without obviously bringing up the baggage, but like what were some of the feelings that you're like that's where I was at and I no longer believe that, but that was just the reality. Like what were some of those things that were holding you back?
A big portion of it is lack of confidence initially, and then lack of embodiment, I want to say. So, just like you said, right? Like I'm also in the coaching world, so I do have so many of those tools and whatnot available. And I found those very easy to apply from a business perspective. And I knew I wanted that outside kind of support with you to do that from that personal standpoint.
We did work on more of like the personal growth side. And so I remember one of the things that you came to me for was like, I just want to be free to be me. And that like resonated with me so much because a lot of my clients truly just want to be their authentic selves. And I feel like that gets thrown around so much. Like, I just want to be my most authentic self. And like, what does it mean to be your most authentic self? Right. I know as a coach, it means to, again, embody that person that you truly are, not being afraid to express yourself, like living in alignment to your values, setting boundaries, knowing when to say no and knowing when to say yes. But like, how are you not being yourself prior to working together? And now, like, how are you feeling now with just like that feeling of like, I'm free to be me. Like I've let go of these expectations that I've set on myself or other people have set for me.
I think a big portion of this genuinely started in the corporate world like years ago. And I think you're so forced in that space to like behave a certain way. There's certain standards that are accepted in that space. And I think that gave very deep rooted programming that I have been trying for years to release. So that being, even in terms of like, I need to put in exactly 8 hours a day as if I'm in shift. And I'm no longer doing that, right? Owning your own business, it doesn't have to look like that anymore.
Right.
Thing that really came out of that for me is just showing up as myself on the calls that I have with clients. Like I bring a lot more humor to it now that I'm finding, and also carving out space in my own schedule. Before we were working together, that was a big one for me because it was all only work, and I wasn't creating space for what also makes me feel good in my personal life, so that I can fill my cup and then help my clients in return just as much from doing so.
Yeah, and I remember because you are someone who lives, uh, in terms of, like, having routines, and you are, like, that poster child for, like, the morning routine and, like, cold plunging and doing the work and journaling, like, I feel that is you. However, I did notice that there was also this like structure where you like, I have to do this. And like, I think that there is room for consistency, but also room for fun. And
Yeah.
so like, I do remember you saying like, oh, like kind of giving allowing yourself room for like wiggle room without losing those routines. So like, can you share a little bit about that? Like how have you allowed yourself to kind of like loosen up a little bit while still keeping consistency in your life?
A big piece of that after the breakthrough was again the ideal schedule, because when I first did it, it was filled completely from morning to night, and it just that helped me to see, like, you can't operate like that. We're not robots. So it is truly like giving yourself grace, having that space in your routine, sticking to the things you want to do. I do still feel like that's important. But now I'm more like, what do I feel like? Tapping back into like my being as a whole instead of it just being like the tasks I need to be doing.
Right. So a little mix of like the feminine and masculine energy. Like
Yes.
I think it is important to have flow and be like, how do I feel? Like, what do I want to do today? But also having structure, right? And so I think that's important. I know that's important. And as far as like, okay, as far as I know like boundary setting, that was like a huge thing for you. How do you feel now, like being able to express yourself with like not only friendships, but also like in your marriage and with your business partner and just like overall, how do you feel like you've grown in that department?
I think it helps me to find my voice. So I am living in a different country from where I'm from now, and I think in doing that, there's just with so much newness happening in your world at one time, it's really easy to just do whatever you can to fit into situations. So it truly helped me take a step back and be like who am I and what's important to me in the first place, and just further like discovering myself. I would say that was a huge takeaway coming out of this.
And how do you think you have like what parts of yourself have you discovered that you feel like you're owning more of now and you're embodying?
Some of the space actually, and as much as I was super what's the word? Super, I was going to say strict, I guess, with my schedule and whatnot. There was components of, like you were saying, fun that I wasn't doing. So I just wasn't planning my weekends. So my weeks would be so devoted, and then weekends would come and I was so burnt out, and it just wasn't consistent at all. So now I'm noticing like I can go for a walk during lunch to calm my nervous system, but that's something that I'm still taking with me and I'm finding super grounding moving forward. So it's helped me to think about like what do I need in this moment versus just thinking I can control everything, because we all know at the end of the day we can't.
Right. I love that you said that because when you're like, oh, I gave myself permission to go on a walk at 12 o'clock, right? After lunch or
Yeah.
whatever. Like that wasn't something that I told you to do, right? And as a coach, like I was never there to tell you like these are the things I do, you do them. But I feel like you were able to discover what you needed because of the work we did together. And so let's dive into the very beginning with like the breakthrough session, which is obviously like tapping into the subconscious mind and letting go of some of the stories that we tell ourselves and being able to create a new version of ourselves. So what did you take from that aspect of things, like really, because it's hard work, it really is like
Yeah.
having to tap into those things that you don't think you need to tap into, the past and your emotions, but like how did that help you kind of realize and open your mind, your heart and your mind of like, this is what I need to calm my nervous system and to like feel more connected to myself?
It's interesting, I think, to describe a breakthrough probably for someone that hasn't done it. Because
Right.
what I found coming through that is so many elements were from much earlier on than I envisioned them to be when I initially joined to do this in the first place. I thought everything was just sort of happening right now. So it was really fascinating to see like this was correlated to a long time ago. And now I've been like almost building on this negative belief that isn't serving me anymore. So it's really cool to go through, because I think first off, you realize so much more about yourself just through uncovering like what was the root cause of this in the first place. And then going back through like how quickly it is to release it when you stick to those tools. So I've found since that as well, going back through different elements that were provided, whether it was in the breakthrough session or afterwards, and making sure to stick to those tools and continuing to embody that, because it doesn't just end. It's, you know, it's
Right.
your new being. So it's sticking to what works and continuing the process there.
Right, and I mean, that's why we talk about, like, taking action, right, and then staying focused, which is, like, what in order to stay focused, we have to create those boundaries, not just with the people around us, but with ourselves, like, it starts with us, and so I love that the way that you stated it because it really doesn't just end like, "Oh, like, great, I'm, like, free from the baggage, and I get to be me, and, like, all is great, and rainbows and sunshine," like, it's gonna get hard and it's life, right? There's gonna be change, there's gonna be chaos, but like, what are you going to implement in your life that's gonna help you continue to be that person that we uncovered and that was always there, but because there was this, these beliefs and these fears that have just been piling up for years that we don't know we have, right? Until we do the work. Um, and we are able to then embody this person that we've always been. Like it's so important to keep that going. So, what had you tried in the past? I know like as a coach where there's so many tools available for us and we're continuously like exploring new things. What have you done in the past that just did not work for you? And like why do you think this work that we did together, this subconscious reprogramming and just like the breakthrough session and the accountability, like how is this different from what you had done in the past?
So it wasn't necessarily like I tried something in the past that didn't work. So our business is family run and operated. And I think I was really looking for that external support outside of that realm to kind of get to that next point.
I know it is about consistency for you, but, like, was there something that you're like, "I really" like, why the breakthrough session? Why this work? Like, why did you truly believe in this work?
Because of the tools we were both trained with. I know that it works. I've done it before. And I know that some of those tools, though, you can't do on yourself.
Yeah,
You need that like guidance and someone to walk you through that and help you see what sometimes I think it's hard, I think we can be our own biggest critic at times. And it was really helpful to go through that with you and have you guide me through the stuff that works. If you're going to trust it 100% and continue to embody it, it sticks.
perfect, okay, and although some of this work does require guidance from, like, a practitioner or a coach, what because we do learn about, like, preserved learnings, which is essentially for those watching or listening to this, it is rewriting your story and taking lessons or preserved learnings from the past, right? And turning them into something new. So, does your mind work in that way now where when something happens or maybe like when I say something like a trigger happens or you're feeling chaos, do you ask yourself like where is this coming from and do you use this like new version of yourself to like move forward?
Yes, 100%. And that's definitely the goal. And I think, you worded that perfectly. It's never ending. So it is increasing the awareness, I think, in the recognition of what's happening in yourself in the first place, and then being able to carry that forward and noticing that, yeah, when do I need to go back to these tools? When do I need to set aside time and like dig into this deeper? So
Yeah.
it's to me to notice just when those little kind of like red flags are coming up, and I'm like, okay, time to go back. Like, is this in alignment with who I am? Is this going to bring me joy? Is this something I want to move forward with?
So I wanted to bring up something about like confidence because I know that it this program really is focused on like gaining clarity, of course, letting go of the things that don't serve you, but in terms of moving forward, like embodying that confidence and stepping into your courage and doing the things that scare you. And I remember one of the things that came up for you was like we worked on confidence and you had this belief about confidence being self-centered, right? And, like, how do you see confidence now? And, like, how do you embody confidence? What is confidence to you?
A big piece of that was it's just being yourself and it's having fun throughout that process. And it just helped me realize like that's my own definition and I get to create what that looks like in my own life too. It doesn't have to look like somebody else's.
No, I love that. No, it definitely was around that. I mean, I have,
Was
like,
it?
here, like, I just loved one of some of the stuff that you said, and it was, like, for me looking at it, I'm like, I just loved it because it was things like filling my own cup, like reading books, like cold plunging, dinner with my husband, like being in community, like these little things that we don't think about that when we pour into our own cup and we do the things that we love and we take action on doing the things we genuinely want to do, like it does build confidence, but it requires courage. Like it requires you in order to have that confidence, it really does start with courage. So how have you become more courageous as well in this process?
You worded that really well, and I think for anyone that's listening to this afterwards, it's not like a one-stop shop. You do have to continue to apply, and a big piece of that courage is also taking that action. So I've noticed that in just conversations with people that are important to me, when something's not in alignment, actually using my voice in those situations. I've noticed that with clients too, and just being comfortable like running with things and not questioning myself as much, and just getting super clear with like what's the intention I want to put out, instead of letting, our ego and that like inner voice that we don't want to hear all the time take over.
Perfect. I love that. I also I was thinking like in terms of your business, because I know we focus on like personal growth, but what you notice throughout this process is that a lot of things bleed into all areas of life, right? Like you and I focus on personal growth, but then it's like we talked about career and business, and we were able to remove some of that chaos and overwhelm that was happening in your business. So I would love to hear some of like your first like the tangible or intangible, whatever comes first, like of the transformation you've had since working on multiple areas.
Biggest component for me was like, how do I, it was almost down to like a nervous system thing again. Like I needed to learn how to, and I knew that going into it, I knew that I needed to carve out this space to stick to the stuff that I was avoiding in a sense. Like I was filling my space so much with work that I wasn't sticking to all the stuff that it does work when you do it. And
Mm.
this working with you allowed me to have that accountability, that like you show up on the calls, you're not, you have to, you do the work, and you were walking me through that. And it made it such an enjoyable process. It really helped me determine where I also want to go, interesting enough, in my career, or what I want to create that's a little bit more specific to a new development and a new program that I'm coming up with. So as much as I did come for personal growth, I think through going through that process, it does sort of like leak into all other areas of your life. Like as much as you're working on one, it shows up in other areas. So it's allowed me to be more confident. Yes, in terms of like personal relationships and whatnot, but also in terms of like, what do I want to create next, and what exactly does that look like moving forward?
That gave me chills. Only, I mean, people are like, okay, she's creating a program. But for me, I was like, yes, because I knew that was something that you wanted to work on. And
Yeah,
like, the fact that you're like, I'm creating it and like I'm doing the work. I don't know in what like how long you're in the process, but it's something that I know we had talked about and not fully developed because I knew that you needed time to really, I mean, you have a current coaching business, right? And so it's a lot to manage, but it makes me so happy just to hear that it's not something that you've abandoned, but you genuinely still want to pursue.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. So lastly, if you were to tell someone like your entire transformation with working with me, what would you say in terms of like how this entire experience has been for you?
Well, I think like almost in terms of if anyone's on the fence around coaching, like I am in the industry, so I 100% see the value in that no matter what. If you're not in that industry though, like look at where you are in your life and look at how happy you truly are in that position. And if you are feeling an overwhelm or anxiety or whatever that perhaps negative emotion is that you do want to release, it is worth investing in yourself to get to a place that you're happier.
Well, I just wanted to allow some time for you to just talk about well, like what's next for you now that you feel like more empowered and confident. Like, what do you hope for like just your life in the next like couple of months? And like, how do you feel? Where are you at currently?
I do have some like big transitions coming up. So what's really come for me at this point in the future is the continuing that embodiment of those tools. So I think you worded that earlier, right? Like you do get to a point, but the work doesn't end there. So continuing with goals and continuing with that direction that you're moving forward with those tools and that foundation that we've set throughout working together.
Perfect. Well, I'm so thankful that you took this time to just open up and yeah, I'm excited for what's next for you. So
Thank
thank you for
you.
trusting me and opening yourself up because I know this work isn't always the easiest.
No, you were awesome and would highly recommend anyone working with you for sure.
Thank you.